Together for managed democracy.
Together for victory.
Together for liberty.
I'm almost certain that if your social media feeds look anything like mine do, then you've probably seen videos floating about the internet of these funny ODST or stormtrooper looking people getting eaten by bugs or blown apart by robots for democracy. And by clicking on this video, you're looking for the final piece of evidence that you need to get the game yourself, or you simply just can't get enough. If you haven't seen any videos at all yet, well then that last sentence just might have made absolutely no sense to you, but by the end of this video, I promise you that it will, and you will have all the information that you need on whether or not you should be taking the dive and hitting that shiny green buy button on Steam. This game has been so popular since release that in the first couple of weeks since launch, server capacity has been massively exceeded, far beyond Arrowhead's expectations, and people have been queuing to simply just get into the game. But trust me, it is worth it. And if you haven't logged on by now, which I would be really surprised as the name is in the title of the video you just clicked on, but that game is Helldivers 2. My name is BigWynter, and let's do this. For Super Earth. First of all, what kind of game actually is Helldivers 2? Well, it's a third-person PvE squad-based shooter that sees the elite forces of Super Earth, the Helldivers, battling to win in an intergalactic struggle to rid the galaxy of the rising alien threats. You can play with up to 4 players per team, and players can use a variety of weapons like pistols, machine guns, and shotguns, or they can use stratagems, which can be called in from orbit and are things like turrets, airstrikes, or super heavy weaponry to help them succeed in their mission and make it to extraction. Or, more often than not, turn your teammates into meaty chunks. To continue with a more basic description before we dive into some more of the final points, the game starts following a short propaganda video and a hilarious but fairly comprehensive tutorial to help you get to grips with the fundamentals of managed democracy. After which, you're officially a Helldiver and you're given command of your very own ship, the Super Destroyer, which you get to name from a selection of various titles. Seems like a lot of responsibility after simply completing an obstacle course to me, but hey, Liberty never sleeps. From your ship, you will be able to purchase all sorts of new upgrades for your gear, weapons, stratagems, and ship modules. But it is also from here that you select your missions. Head to the command center, select your region as space, planet, and then mission. From here, you simply choose where to drop on the planet, follow your objectives, and fight for everything you're worth and for democracy before making it to extraction. Now, with the very basics out of the way, I'd like to split things up into a few different categories to best give you all the information that you need. These categories are going to be graphics and visuals, audio, on-planet gameplay, off-planet gameplay, and overall progression and replayability. So first up, let's talk graphics and visuals. Whilst I hope the B-roll footage I've shown so far is enough to put this point across, but this game is absolutely stunning. First of all, I don't know what kind of process was used to put together the first propaganda video you see when they boot up the game for the first time, but it looks fantastic. From the character and enemy designs to the planets and world building, the game is super nice to look at. Each planet you go to will have its own unique rendition of a biome, and no one drop location will look the same as another. The art style perfectly captures the gritty crusade the Helldivers are sent on, whilst equally capturing the beauty of space and the horrors of what you're up against. Plus, at least from my experience and that of the Helldivers I've been playing with, the game runs really well and I've not had any performance issues at all. And to perfectly complement the art style, I'm happy to say that the music and the sound design are absolutely on point. The ka-chunk of your feet locking into your drop pod and the music that plays as you're hurtling planetside makes it feel like every single mission you drop into is the mission that is going to tip the scales of war, and it gets your adrenaline pumping. The weapons sound perfectly meaty, and the ambient sounds of your environment get you super immersed. And whatever they did to make the sounds of the ordnance you can call in, keep doing that. That shit is great. On the gameplay side of things, let's first touch on off-planet before diving into the meat and grit of planet side. When you're not fighting for your life and for democracy, you'll spend the rest of your time within your ship. From here, you'll be able to access all upgrade and mission info. In terms of the mission and progression within the game, it's actually super fascinating and almost plays like a roguelite and an MMO, getting small passives and upgrades over time. At the navigation console, you'll be able to see various sectors of space currently occupied by Super Earth, which is us, or by the automatons or the bugs. By selecting planets on the warfront between territories, you'll be able to take on missions to either defend control of a territory or to take it from the opposition, spreading peace and democracy with superior firepower. These missions vary massively from the terrains and biomes to the objectives themselves. Some may be destroying an automaton airbase, sabotaging pipe pipelines or terminating an infestation of the bug. But regardless of the directive, I found each mission is just as epic and exhilarating as the last. Now, every time you succeed on a mission, the percentage control of an area will increase in your favor. That percentage is shared server side. So if your team and 100 other teams out there on the same server succeed, you'll eventually take control over an area, which is so cool. Before dropping into a planet, you'll be able to see a number of other ships orbiting, and these will be other players also fighting the good fight planet side, although you won't necessarily be able to encounter them down on your mission. Also, while in your ship, you'll be able to access all of the necessary upgrades to spread democracy. Helldivers has such a diverse unlock system that stays rewarding even into the higher echelon within the game. There are so many stratagems to choose from that it's almost hard to decide what to unlock first, and the sheer variety adds so much to replayability and customization, as no one mission ever has to be played in the same way. The stratagems can range from airstrikes to super heavy weapons or Gatling gun sentry turrets to help hold the fort. All of the stratagem and ship upgrade unlocks come simply from the currency and the experience that you earn in game by playing, and so do the unlocks for weapons, armor, and cosmetics. The weapon unlocks are more of a lateral upgrade as opposed to unlocking super OP weapons later in the game, which is oddly refreshing and makes it feel like you're not constantly chasing after your higher level teammates. But the more you play, the more equipped you become for dealing with certain enemies and objectives. And whilst yes, there is a battle pass and a premium battle pass in a paid for game, which I've seen a number of people upset about, but it is most certainly not a pay to win experience. And while you can unlock various cosmetics and weapon variants from the premium battle pass with real money, you can simply earn the premium battle pass via the free one, as the credits are part of the reward system. Or you can find the currency in bunkers on world, so it's a win-win in my opinion for the players. Now onto planet side, this is where the good stuff really starts. Once your drop pod begins hurtling down to your landing zone of choice, you'll be charged with a number of primary and secondary objectives. These objectives vary massively depending on which enemy planet you land on and the mission type that you select. This could be a defense mission against a horde of encroaching automatons, or it could be to seek out and eliminate a proper big bug infestation.
Oh, we got it.
It worked. Oh my god, it worked.
landed.
Oh my god, democracy has landed. Each Helldiver will be equipped with a primary and secondary weapon, a number of grenades, stims for healing, and access to a number of stratagems you can call in throughout the mission. The gunplay in this game, which is both in first and third person, is really well done and fairly unique. Notice when aiming in third person, there is a circle indicating where your bullets are actually going, which at first I didn't like, but after some practice, I now really enjoy it as it helps keep you on the move whilst maintaining that DPS. All of the weapons are really satisfying to use and have their place in taking out various different enemy types. Faster firing weapons are great for dealing with hordes of smaller enemies, and the meatier weapons like shotguns are great for single target opponents. Heavier weapons like LMGs, HMGs, and rocket launchers have a delayed aiming regardless of your sensitivity, which really helps give a sense of weight and firepower. And of course, shitting a brick when you're desperately trying to swing it around to aim at a robot with chainsaws for hands that snuck up on you. Now on planet, all objective information will be found on your minimap. Simply follow the minimap to your main objective, or get exploring and find various secondary objectives to bolster you and your team's score at the end of the mission. And whilst horde shooters are honestly pretty inherently fun, where I think this game really shines is the mechanical side of gameplay. Now I mentioned earlier that you're able to call in various airstrikes, artillery, and heavy weaponry to take out enemies and strongholds, which to some may seem like that's a little overkill and OP, but trust me when I say it is far from that. Despite the vast array of weaponry at your disposal, you'll find yourself swarmed near constantly, just making it out even with the baby nukes you're calling in from orbit. Even with a two-manned, team-loaded rocket launcher, some enemies just don't go down easily, and without additional firepower, you cannot win. To call in these stratagems or redeploy fallen teammates, you'll have to input a series of essentially GTA cheat codes, which again, at first I thought was a little cumbersome, but the more I practiced with them, the more satisfying it got. If you're skillful enough, you can call in all sorts of reinforcements on the fly in the heat of battle without ever having to take cover. Nothing beats calling in air support on yourself mid-combat surrounded by the bee's nest you've just poked, diving backwards out of the line of fire. And yes, you can absolutely swan dive in this game, which leads to some truly epic moments, but also some truly goofy moments, which is honestly part of the reason I think this game has been so successful. Oh! It worked! It fucking worked! Whoa, I'm just flying through the air. Between the hilarious ragdoll physics, the overly dramatic propaganda dialogue, and the sheer disappointment in your teammate's voice when you call an airstrike on top of them, yes, that's right, there is friendly fire, this game strikes the perfect balance of the masculine urge to sacrifice your life for the good of democracy and just pure comedy. The blend of the two makes for such a hilarious gameplay session every single time, and the game just keeps on delivering. And through all of this chaos, if you are able to complete your main objective through your wits, grit, and pure democratic fervor, you'll have a limited amount of time to return to your extraction point and hold the line until your ship comes to collect you. But again, before we move on to the next segment, just to reiterate, on-planet gameplay 10 out of 10. Kiss the chef. Interlinked with the gameplay side of things comes the progression and the replayability. Now, with gaming outlets clickbait reporting things like Palworld has lost 84% of its player base since launch, which is dumb, but that's for another time, or in the comments below if you fancy it, you might be wondering how long can this success story continue? Well, honestly, I think pretty damn far. Now, I mentioned earlier that the sheer number and variety of unlocks is almost overwhelming, but not in a bad way. The sheer diversity of weapons and stratagems, paired with the constant flux of percentage control of the planets in a sector, it gives the player more and more incentive to keep coming back. Then, the more unlocks you have, the more variety of playstyles and missions you can handle, so no one mission will be identical to another. And whilst a level 1 player and a level 20 player don't have a difference in raw base stats, the level 20 player will be able to handle the tougher missions purely due to their experience and their arsenal available to them. Speaking of tougher missions, there are 9 difficulties in this game, which is absolutely bonkers. I've barely managed to unlock the 6th difficulty, and even that seems near impossible with my current set of equipment. With each increase in difficulty, you'll see an increase in the sheer number of enemies, as well as the appearance of larger or more powerful enemy types that you haven't seen before, which never fails to leave a puddle in your pants. And unlike other games where the difficulty scales per the number of players, Helldivers doesn't. So if you dive into a higher level mission by yourself, you're fighting the equivalent number of enemies that 4 Helldivers on that difficulty would be expected to take out, which is either very brave or very stupid. Which leads me to one of my final points, and what I think is the true hidden gem within this game. And to me, it's the community. Because the game kind of forces you to play with other players, which I know some people really tend to hate, it leads to this odd phenomenon of pure camaraderie, where I usually would prefer to tackle things by myself than have a random slot in. When you're screaming down the beaches for help from the angry knife hand men that you've just pissed off, you will take any help that you can. And when the help comes in the form of a random joining your squad, seeing them salute as they exit their drop pod never ceases to put a smile on my face. But if you really don't want to play with the randoms, you can set your lobby to private, but you will need a squad to tackle the higher level missions. But this camaraderie is like nothing I've ever seen before in a game. Helldivers was both terribly and phenomenally well advertised. And what I mean by that is there seemed to be absolutely no real advertising for the game other than a few hilariously put together trailers, which nearing and at release seemed to cause the news of the game to spread like wildfire simply by the word of mouth, which would explain the immediate server issues experienced. The game is currently available on PC and PS5, but PC and PS5 players are petitioning to bring it to Xbox, and it is single-handedly squashing the console wars. PC and PlayStation players online are eagerly awaiting their Xbox brethren to come and join them on spreading the democracy across the galaxy, and I'm here for it. Now, sadly, I just missed it, but there are special events held in-game that last a limited time period, where the collective forces of the Helldivers rain down hellfire to try and take control over their enemy home planets. Currently, there are 2 enemy factions, but Arrowhead have already stated that there are new enemy factions to come, which to me is super welcome news, and I'm really excited for the future of this game. But with all that said, I wholeheartedly recommend picking this game up, whether you're on PC or console. We are all brethren within the Helldivers elite. Currently, it's £35 on Steam and the PlayStation Store, which is honestly an absolute steal for the AAA quality that this game delivers. I hope to see you out there saluting in game. Thank you so much for watching. Like and sub if you enjoyed or you found this helpful. Let me know your thoughts and how many times I used the word democracy during this video in the comments below. Take care and much love.